How's it going, everybody? If you're new here, welcome in. And if you've been here before, make sure to smash the like button on the way in. I'm Rollshambo, the connoisseur and collector of all things sharp and shiny. And if you can't tell, I'm really stoked. I'm really stoked because today I've got a GRAIL in my hands. Without a shadow of a doubt, this is a GRAIL knife. And I've made some sacrifices to make this happen. I had to sell off some of my collection in short notice because when these become available, you have to jump on it. You cannot hesitate or they will be gone, because when word spreads, and it always does, these sell out. I am, of course, talking about the new DLC Neutron 2 from Three Rivers Manufacturing in lizard skin contoured titanium. This knife is gorgeous, and if I'm not mistaken, I do believe that this is the first time they've done a DLC blade on the Neutron 2. I'm sure if I'm incorrect, you will let me know in the comment section down below. Three Rivers has been making a name for themselves in the last couple of years as one of the best American-made brands when it comes to their fit and finish, their heat treat, their design language. It's very, very user-friendly. And when I say GRAIL, I'm talking about the level of milling that has been done here, the contouring. I think that we need to discuss just how good this is, specifically on this lizard skin pattern, because there is so much that goes into this design. Check it out. So we start off with this diamond texturing up top that gets smaller and smaller and smaller until it fades into nothing all the way down to the point at the end of that handle scale. Now it is a liner lock, and I want to mention something that I think is really cool with this knife is that they do sell extra scale sets. So this is a full liner lock. You can take off both scales with some T6 screws and completely replace this, or mix and match. So you could do carbon fiber, you could do G10. I think they have tech wood, or they've got options. So if you're looking at this and you're like, Rollshambo, that is a $440 knife. What if I don't feel like taking that beautiful contoured titanium lizard skin scales? What if I don't want to take that out into the field? Because trust me when I say this blade was meant to get work done. The good news is that you could easily swap out for some G10 or some micarta, or for some other kind of scale that you're not worried about putting some work on. I'm enamored by it. Not only do we have that intense milling pattern, but these scales are also contoured. So the contouring means is that it's not a flat scale. You have to create a platform for that pocket clip to sit on so that it actually makes proper contact with the scales. So what are we looking at here? Well, it is a $440 knife in this configuration with the DLC coated blade, with the black G10 backstrap, and these titanium lizard skin scales. And on top of that, it is a double-sided thumb stud. The pocket clip is extremely deep carry. It's like Three Rivers looked at that and said, you know what? Our customers might be wearing some thick pants. They might have some really thick fabric. Let's make it so that they've got so much headroom in that pocket clip that nobody could possibly say that they ever had any issues with it at all. Also, if you're familiar with the TRM Atom, this continues the pattern of having extremely thin blade stock. Now that's important for cutting geometry. And it's also important for edge retention. Blade geometry, edge geometry, all plays a role in how slicey a knife is, and also how well the edge will be maintained. So when you order in this configuration, you get the DLC coated 20 CV blade, these beautiful titanium 3D milled and contoured handle scales, and then of course it is a liner lock. How's the action? Well, I've been playing with this all day. This came in today, and like the child I am, whenever there's a knife in the mail, I can't help myself. I had to pull this out of the box immediately. I carried it all day because I wanted to. I knew that if I had tried to do the unboxing, and trust me when I say I actually did try. I had a review in my car. I never do those. And that just told me, no, you need to actually get your thoughts together on this, because This knife is incredibly well made. What's shocking to me is the level of detail, the fact that we have contoured titanium handle scales from an American company. We find contouring on titanium handle scaled knives pretty frequently in knives that are made in China, in knives that are made in Taiwan and Italy. However, to do that in the US, the manufacturing process becomes so expensive that typically we're looking at something like a Conagarius. And even then, I don't necessarily know if the milling patterns on the handle scales for something like a Conagarius even meets this level. For example, when you look at this lizard skin texturing on the handle scales, each one of those diamonds has 4 distinct sides per diamond. And when you consider that it follows that pattern all the way through the handle scale and gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, it creates this dimension on the handle scales, but also it provides a superior amount of grip in the hand. I might be waxing on about how cool the manufacturing is on something like this knife, but the fact of the matter is the people over at Three Rivers make every single knife with the intention of being a workhorse. So what that texturing actually means is a superior, comfortable grip. It also means that you can choke up really nicely on this blade. We're looking at about a 3-inch blade here. And even the DLC coating. The DLC coating is kind of a matte finish on here, but it's a very wear-resistant coating. That stands for diamond-like carbon. And diamond-like carbon, or DLC, can have a Rockwell itself upwards of about 82, 83. However, it does make the steel below that coating a little bit softer. That's part of the process. You usually lose 1 or 2 Rockwell. But because of how thin this blade is, it's whisper thin. It doesn't necessarily matter if it lost a Rockwell point or not, because the edge geometry and the blade geometry is one that will lend to some seriously good edge retention over time. It is running on phosphor bronze washers, and I'm going to tell people, do not put oil on this right out of the box. 2 things that I noticed when I took it out of the box was the blade was very slightly off-centered and the action was very stiff. You'll notice that it's not stiff anymore. So if you ever see that, where right out of the gates, the blade is just a tiny bit off-centered and the action is a little sluggish, just ever so slightly, while looking at the center of the blade, loosen it just a little bit. It's not uncommon for these knives to come over tightened, even if it's just by a little bit. When they're boxing these up and putting them through QC, they look at so many that it's something that's really easy to miss. And I can tell you that now the action is really good. For a thin blade running on phosphor bronze, it's not going to be super drop shut, but a little flick of the wrist is going to get you in good shape all around. This is a knife that is going to be competing with knives that cost twice as much, especially if we're talking about American-made knives, and it's really, really exciting. Now, that isn't to say that I love absolutely everything about this knife. One thing that I'm not a huge fan of is the fact that this is a $440 knife with a steel pocket clip. I feel like it exists to remind the user that this is, in fact, a knife that's meant to be used. It's not meant to be something where you look at it and put it in your display case and say, well, that's a cool knife, and go on with your day. No, it's almost as if Three Rivers said, here's this gorgeous grail of a knife, and here's a steel pocket clip. It's a very functional thing. It's very well made. It's purpose built to be in your pocket, to be an everyday warrior. It is built to possibly be the last knife that you ever need. This could actually be the grail breaker, because they created something that could stand the test of time. They created something that is going to satiate that need to find the next best thing. Something that I encounter quite frequently with Three Rivers knives is the comment section where people say, well, I want one, but they're always sold out. Well, I want one, but I went to buy one and I got cart sniped, or, you know, they just sold out so quickly. These were available probably for about an hour before I even saw their post on Instagram that these were available. And then even then I tracked it and they were available for another 2 hours after that. That is a pretty decently long window of time for something like this to be available. When you consider that this is competing with USA made knives that cost 2 to 3 times as much in quality and in price, I don't know how. As it stands, if you have a regular Neutron and maybe you're just in love with these scales like I am, the good news is that you can actually buy the scales separately and put them on. These scales bought separately cost about $200, and I'm going to tell you that if you're a fan of design, if you're a fan of excellent manufacturing and engineering, you've got to get a set of these scales at the least. If you've got a micarta Neutron 2, yeah, pick up a set of these scales and thank me later, because it is one hell of an upgrade and I'm seriously impressed. Now, another thing that I don't necessarily love is the fact that the pocket clip does not have a flat spot or a platform raised up, which is something that I think that it would be easy for them to do. I can understand the idea of, well, we don't want to interrupt this absolutely gorgeous milling, but on contoured handle scales that have aggressive 3D textured milling like this, it's common practice to see a little platform, a little flat platform underneath that pocket clip, and that would actually serve a nice functional purpose of giving the user a much smoother in and out of the pocket. I did notice that it sticks a tiny bit going in. This is a really stiff pocket clip, but I'm not mad at it. It goes in and out of the pocket just fine. It's not a huge deal. Now, something that I have as a suggestion, because I think that if they really wanted to take this over the top, there is 2 things that they would need to do. First, I know that they're capable of excellent 3D milling work. We can see it on these handle scales. I want to see a 3D milled pocket clip. 3D milled pocket clips do serve a regular function in that they are more comfortable and more low profile than something like a bent clip. Also, it would be more premium. I understand that to create a 3D milled pocket clip for this style of knife, whether it's the Neutron 2 or even on the Atom, you'd probably be looking at another $150 to $200 add-on for that. And then, of course, secondly, I love the fact that they added in a backspacer at all, because I'm not a huge fan of open back designs, especially on knives like this that have a super thin behind the edge geometry, because I don't want anything in my pockets dinging the edge of the blade while the knife is closed. I just don't. I would love to see a full 3D milled titanium version, and all that would require is a 3D milled pocket clip and a 3D milled titanium backspacer. In its current format, those 2 things do not make this any less of a GRAIL killer than it currently is. Obviously, I thought it was worth the moolah because I went ahead and sold off a few pieces and picked this up like it was nobody's business. Even now, I'm having a hard time talking about it because the more I look at it, the more I have an internal dialogue, and I really, really appreciate this. This is not the most expensive knife in my collection, but it is definitely my favorite as of right now. And I have absolutely no regrets when it comes to picking it up. I do have some O-rings for these thumb studs coming. I don't know if I'll put them on because this aesthetic is absolutely beautiful, stunning, jaw-locking goodness, but they are uncomfortable thumb studs without the O-rings. And so those are in the mail, as well as their titanium pocket clip replacement. For those 2 extras, I believe it was around $30. Money well spent if you ask me, but only you can decide if those are things that you actually need, or if this is something that you actually need. The discussion needs to be had. Is Three Rivers Manufacturing the best American-made manufacturer when it comes to 3D milled, contoured, titanium handle scaled knives? I think that they just might well be. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. And if you want to watch more awesome knife and EDC content, please click on one of the videos that pops up next.